The Bills defense has issues that must be overcome to achieve the ultimate goal. Locked on Bills starts now.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. We are continuing our bi-week discussions today with Bruce Nolan of the Bruce Exclusive Podcast. He joins me today to get into some defensive topics. We're going to talk team building on the defensive side of the football. We're going to talk safeties, and we're going to talk run defense. Bruce Nolan, welcome in. Thanks for giving us some of your time.
Mr. Marino, thanks so much for having me, man. I hope we can talk defensive without getting defensive today. And I hope that that's the goal. We're going to have these conversations in an open, honest environment. We're going to openly discuss the issues that we've seen on tape and that are reflected by the data, and give our opinions on what we could do moving forward.
All right. Well, yeah, right now there's the bye-week blues is kind of what I'm calling this. It's tough, man. 2 in a row that they've lost. You saw issues in 4 games. They won them. And you told yourself, well, yeah, they're winning, and some of these are double-digit point wins, and they're not playing their best football, but just wait until they turn it on. And then they didn't turn it on and lost 2 in a row, and they're 4-2, and people are concerned. And so a lot of that is rooted in the defense, although the offense has given us some things to be worried about lately where, hey, you score 20, you give up 24 points to Atlanta and 23 to New England, you think you're probably going to win those games, and that didn't happen. So let's talk about this defense. I want to start with run defense, or you want to start with run defense, as I've shared with those who have listened to my conversations this week with Nate Geary and Greg Tomsett. One thing that I like to do now with these bi-week discussions is make them discussions. And I asked you guys, like, what do you want to talk about? What's on your mind? What's burning up your mind? And you said these topics. So we're getting into it. We're going to start with run defense, which feels like a 5-year conversation that we've been talking about with the Buffalo Bills.
It does. And I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm being hypocritical to some of the things that I said last year exactly on this show. And one of the things that I think it's important is the run defense has been an issue for the Buffalo Bills, like you mentioned, over the last couple of years, but it's a different cause this time around. And that's the thing that gives you consternation. One of the things that I said, famously might not be the word, but it kind of stuck in people's mind as a fun little soundbite last year talking about the run defense is, I'll care about run defense when they care about run defense. From a schematic standpoint, it was pretty obvious that they were inviting the run in order to play the pass better. And in a league that is still, regardless of what you saw last year, still a passing league, that was understandable. And the caveat to that is, if the Buffalo Bills decide that they want to stop the run, and they try to stop the run, and they can't stop the run, then I'll be concerned. What you've seen from the Buffalo Bills this season is different, because you're not losing against the run simply because of schematic issues. Right. It's not just because of light boxes. It's also because of other things. I think that it starts up front. I think what you're seeing is higher variance players get higher snap counts. Players like Deion Walker, players like TJ Sanders are getting higher snap counts due to the injury to Ed Oliver. And instead of that veteran inside that you had last year, you're getting these higher variance rookies, and that's putting additional pressure on your second level. And I think Terrell Bernard has not played as well this year as he has previously. Now, most of that shows up in coverage, but I think it shows up because Terrell Bernard is primarily a higher variance linebacker too. He makes splash plays that we all wish we would have gotten from Tremaine Edmunds. And that was the big thing when you transition from Edmunds to Bernard. It was, well, he's making those big splash plays that Tremaine Edmunds never made. And that's true. But in the very similar stance to the Jordan Phillipses and the Deion Walkers of the world, sometimes those splash plays comes with them higher variance negative plays. And you're putting a higher variance linebacker behind higher variance defensive tackles. And so it's a little bit like the joke I make all the time is if you're in a marriage, both of you can't be bad with money. Both of you can't be adventurous. One of you has to be the guy who goes, okay, now, sweetheart, that was lovely, but we really can't afford that right now. Because if you're both freewheeling, that's okay, spend the money, then you just end up bankrupt. That's what that happens. And it's a little bit like that with the relationship between the defensive tackles and the linebackers. And so I kind of think this all sort of stacks together into a scenario that makes you more concerned than you otherwise would have been, because the reasoning for the run defense issues is not quite the same as it was historically.
I looked up a little information in anticipation of you kind of going that route, and 60% of the snaps played by defensive tackles for the Bills this year have been either a rookie or a practice squad player. So Deion Walker, TJ Sanders, Zion Logue, Fedarian Mathis, and Jordan Phillips. I think that speaks to exactly what you're getting after. And they've only had Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver for one game together, right? This is the Baltimore game, and that's it. You thought you were going to get them back for the Atlanta game, and Daquan Jones pops a calf in pregame. So I think that is at its root a big problem. But to the point that you made, they are playing base defense at an unbelievable rate, like a normal rate. It's not even low. It's a normal rate. And they're not just presenting light boxes and saying, hey, we want you to run. There is some intentionality. You heard Sean McDermott at the half, or coming out of the half against Atlanta. You know, they gave up the 81-yard run to Bijan Robinson. He says, we played an 8-man front. And you play an 8-man front, you get creased. Well, guess what? There's not levels. You only play 11 on the field. So a lot of the same issues, but within different structure. And boy, I think the tackling has just been really, really poor this year when it comes to run defense. And I'd even argue that there were some games this year where I thought displacement in the run game wasn't that big of an issue. And I mean displacement, guys getting blown off the ball. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I thought there was some pretty good firm moments from the D line, but hey, the second and third level, they just weren't making tackles.
You're 100% right. And it's funny because historically we have looked to Matt Milano as being culprit number one of the high variance. Yeah, he makes the splash plays, but he misses a ton of tackles. Like, that's been the book on Matt Milano for his entire career, is you get those awesome splash plays, but he misses a ton of tackles. Ironically enough, that's not what's happening. It's I won't say it's contagious, but it's kind of contagious, right? It's happening now to other parts of this defense. And the ironic thing for me is that one of the most significant concerns I had about run defense on the edges was Tre'Davious White. That was one of the most significant concerns I had. He's the least of my worries in run defense right now, to be honest, which is, I think it would be funny if it wasn't so heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. What do you think about, okay, we can all recognize it's been bad. I think I saw a stat today that the yards per carry that the Bills have allowed is like the most since some team in the 80s, right? Like yards per carry. Obviously, we'll see how the rest of the season moves along, but what is your confidence level in this getting to the point where you can live with it? You know, I mean, I don't think the Bills are suddenly going to become an amazing run defense, but how does it get to the point where this year it's sufficient and you're not showing up concerned? I'm concerned. The Bills play the Panthers in a few weeks. I'm concerned about Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard and all the backup offensive linemen with the Panthers, you know, creating a bunch of space for them to run the football.
I think this is going to sound counterintuitive when I say it, but I think part of it is just getting Ed Oliver back, right? Which I think is helpful. I think that strength in the middle is helpful. You never thought you'd look at a guy who probably played in the high 270s, low 280s in college, and we're all like, oh man, you really could use that strength in the middle, but he's incredibly strong for a defensive tackle that size. I think that helps. I also do think, and this is going to sound strange, I think you might want to play more nickel. And I know that sounds insane when I say it that way, but I trust Taron Johnson filling his spot. And if you talk about Sean McDermott's remarks, and one of the things he talks about all the time is that you're not in your gaps in the run game. There is one player I trust to be in his gap in the run game, and it's Taron Johnson. One of the reasons they were able to play nickel the way they were all those years is because you can trust him to play the run downhill like a linebacker. And I know that you're not getting the same level of Taron Johnson that you have historically. Like we need to have a real conversation about the fact that the Taron Johnson that we know and love is not the same Taron Johnson, but it might be better than your third linebacker at this point. And so I'm not willing to, put Dro Andreessen on the field. I'm not willing to do that and just give up all of my coverage stuff to achieve this, but I am willing to say that Taron Johnson may be a better run filler than some of your third linebackers. And maybe the answer isn't to do that. I know that the reason you're doing that is because of the higher variance you have a defensive tackle. Like, I know that's the reason why you're playing base.
Yeah.
But I mean, I trust Taron Johnson to make a defensive tackle right when he makes a mistake a lot more than I trust a third linebacker. And so I know that sounds strange, but if it was me, I would start thinking about it. I would. And I know that, again, I know it sounds weird, but it's just something I've been mulling around.
Yeah, let's hope some of that happens. Obviously, Larry Ogunjobi, Michael Hoyt, more veterans in the mix should help.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're not panicking about this like many are right now. Speaking of panicking, I know there's a lot of panicking over safeties. And, Bruce is the DB guy. So we're going to talk safeties and also some spot drop zone coverage here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th was World Mental Health Day, and this year we're saying thank you, therapists. Life can be tough on and off the field, and behind millions of mental health journeys are therapists who showed up, listened, and helped people take a step forward. BetterHelp is shining the spotlight on those connections while also making it simple for you to find support whenever you need it. Therapy moments can be life-changing, whether it's learning to better connect with your kids, healing a relationship, or finding healthy ways to manage stress. I know that when something's weighing on me, I just like to be able to speak with somebody that can help me bring clarity and relief. If you've ever thought about trying therapy, this is the perfect reminder that help is out there and the right therapist can make all the difference. This World Mental Health Day, join us in celebrating the therapists who've helped millions take a step forward. If you're ready to start your own journey, BetterHelp can help you find the right therapist. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing touchdowns, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make a lineup in under a minute, and the new injury reboot feature is awesome. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it's not going to count against you. There's a special max discount promotion right now live on the board. For the Golden State Warriors versus Los Angeles Lakers game on October 21st, Steph Curry is discounted to only needing more than half a point to win. Mix and match with players from football, basketball, and baseball to build your dream lineup today. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Welcome back, everybody. We're joined today by Bruce Nolan of the Bruce Exclusive Podcast, something that you got to listen to. Every Thursday, the Bruce Exclusive, wherever you listen to audio podcasts, make sure you find it. Make sure you make it part of your Thursdays. It's one of my favorite things that happens every week. And Bruce is in his bag right now. He is incorporating, I don't know, what's the word? Like you're bringing in outside things that have nothing to do with football and tying it together with football. Today was your wife becoming a Taylor Swift fan, and you broke down the different eras of Bills wide receivers, and I just was hanging on every word. It was gripping. It was interesting. It was awesome. So make that part of your routine. And Bruce, thanks for what you continue to bring to Bills Mafia on a weekly basis through your podcast.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It's been an interesting year to be in your bag, because I think people appreciate the bag a little more when everything is rosy and joyous. So you're kind of hoping like, hey man, I worked really hard on this metaphor. I hope it doesn't land like a lead balloon in here because everyone's mad that we lost. But people have really responded positively, and I've been really happy with it. And I still haven't gotten any feedback from my wife, mind you. I don't think she's listened to the show yet, but yeah. I think she needs to listen to the show so she can give me the feedback on that metaphor.
Right. Nudge, nudge. Hey, listen to this. You're probably going to like it. Can I ask you just a curiosity question?
Yeah, sure.
I know that's a dangerous thing, right? Mr. Bruce Nolan, secretive man, but I'm not going to get too personal here, obviously. When you are putting these podcasts together and you're incorporating these things, right? The Taylor Swift journey of her career to the Bills wide receivers. How do you start? Is it you think about what you want to talk about and then you find the connection, or is it sometimes the other way around?
Sometimes I think about what's topical for that week, right? The narrative is the big part of this. What is the narrative thread? If there's one or two, I'll kind of mull around in them and I'll think to myself, okay, if I was explaining this narrative thread to somebody who wasn't a football person, where would I start? Right? Like, where would I start with spot drop zone is like a blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And I was explaining to someone who didn't have football background. What would I do? And then the brain just sort of kind of goes from there, and it reaches into all sort of weird dark corners of my history and my past and everything else that we've talked about. And sometimes we'll go with, moral philosophy or macroeconomics or whatever it is, but we'll find something that is salient to connect to the topic, because I'm a believer that even if you already know a lot about that topic, hearing it presented in a different way makes it feel different to you. It gives you a different perspective on it. It gives you almost a more accepted, more rooted knowledge in it because you heard it presented that specific way. You hear this, pastors do this all the time, right? They open with an object lesson of some sort, and then they'll tie it into something else, right? Motivational speakers do this all the time, and they do it because they want people to remember their stuff. And when you have a show that is part of an unbelievable content creation and media community, you got to do something, because you only do it once a week. And if I'm gonna make any sort of positive impact on the community, then I should probably have something that people remember.
I think that you maybe just explained exactly why I like it so much, because it allows a lot of things to become very rooted for me, because I hear it in a different way with the tie-in, and it really lands. So I love it, and please don't ever change. All right, let's talk about safeties. Let's talk about safeties, Bruce. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are not walking through those doors. What's going on, man?
No, I mean, Jordan Poyer could walk through the door.
Well,
not that Jordan Poyer.
Not that one. Yeah. What is up, man?
I think for me, I think it's a measure of acceptability. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. What I mean by that is that Taylor Rapp being a high variance safety right now is completely acceptable in my mind. Completely acceptable, because he's basically a rookie at this point. So being a high variance safety, because we knew what we were getting in Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop was a extremely talented athlete, right? Just higher level athlete than this team has had at safety in a very, very long time. But he was going to be a rookie. His first year was basically a wash. So if you saw Cole Bishop performing this way and you said he was a rookie, you'd be like, yeah, he's learning his way through. He's going, and that's okay. My issue is that Taylor Rapp's variance shouldn't be there as the veteran. And it makes me wonder if Taylor Rapp is who we thought he might have been. And what I mean by that is that Taylor Rapp, when placed next to Damar Hamlin, looked very different than Taylor Rapp when placed next to Cole Bishop. Maybe Taylor Rapp isn't the steadying veteran force. Maybe Taylor Rapp is the high variance player he needs next to a steadier veteran. Because say what you will about Damar Hamlin was a completely average, like completely okay for me. Like, I didn't think he was a really, really high performer safety. He was fine, but he was perfectly fine. I was like, yeah, he's fine. That's why he's fine. And the market reflected that. When he went out to market, he came back to the Buffalo Bills as a backup. It was because nobody else thought he was, worthy of meaningful money on the market as a safety. And, oh yeah, this is a preferred starter for the next 5 years. We're good. He's fine. He's a perfectly rosterable safety. And when you put Taylor Rapp next to that, I think you got arguably the best version of Taylor Rapp. But when you put Taylor Rapp next to a variance player, he's not the steadying veteran that we were hoping he was going to be. So the variance from Cole Bishop is acceptable to me. The variance from Taylor Rapp is more concerning. So that's the way that I look at it. And that's the reason why I see it through that lens, because I don't think Taylor Rapp is playing the role this year that we thought he was going to play. He's playing the role that we expected someone else to play.
I've thought a lot about these safeties, and I've never considered it through that lens. and my head is spinning, and I think you may be onto something. I just know that I'm disappointed with how these guys are performing, and I certainly didn't expect Cole Bishop to be perfect. I thought there'd be some ups and downs, and I've enjoyed the ups. That's been fun to see, but for Taylor Rapp to fall off like he has in every imaginable way, especially from a tackling perspective, where, last year that guy saved the Bills defense so many times with big tackles, and it's the exact opposite this year, and it's hard to reconcile, and it's just makes me wonder if he's beat up, or he had the back and the hip injury and the concussion last year. It's like, what, is this guy just cooked? But it's hard to reconcile, and I'm sure it is for Sean McDermott. And that's his position, right? He's got the resume that he does there, and it's like, this is kind of a guy that they were very intentional. They brought him in. He had a incubation year with Hyde and Poyer, and then was like, okay, yeah, we like you. You're going to be one of our answers. And then I thought he had a pretty decent year as a starter last year. And then this year, it's like, I don't know if you're playable. It's tough to see.
I think that there's a great lesson to be learned here. And I think the great lesson is that we look at these players in the offseason as players on paper. And we do this with, I've mentioned this a lot. We do this with rookies and early young players. We just assume an upward trajectory, right? And with veterans who are in their late 20s, right, we assume a stagnant trajectory. We assume that whoever we saw last year is going to be exactly who we see this year. And that is proven over and over again to just not be the case. We're not seeing it with Terrell Bernard. We're not seeing it with Taylor Rapp. We're not seeing it with Christian Benford. We're not seeing it. And so this idea that you can just say, well, this name on paper is the same as the name on paper was last year, therefore the play you get on the field will be the same that you got last year. If anything, that's the lesson, I think, from a Taylor Rapp standpoint, is that we assume upward trajectory from young players. Oh, well, they'll definitely be better than they were. Probably, maybe not. I don't know. Who knows? Progress isn't linear. But also, year over year, even for a veteran, is not linear. And that's what we're seeing with Taylor Rapp. And I think that's probably going to have to be a conversation that we have this offseason when you look at returning starters, and that are there reasons to be concerned that don't immediately pop up? We spend so much time in the offseason talking about new. We want to talk about people who came in and people who left, right? But we don't want to talk about carryover at all. And so I think that there's a lesson for me anyway to be learned in this Taylor Rapp situation that I think I'm probably going to have to spend some time on this offseason.
I think you just came up with a great idea for my podcast on June 12th, 2026. Thank you for that.
I'm here for you.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, I want to talk with you about zone coverage, spot drop zone coverage. This is something that has frustrated me a ton this year. And I want to hear from you on this, because I think you know more about coverage than me. You're a check with me person. Like, if I'm confused about a play, I'll send it to you. There's probably between 5 and 10 times per year where I'll send you a play. I was like, hey, what do you see here? So with that in mind, am I rightfully frustrated in spot drop zone coverage and what that is leading to for opposing quarterbacks and free access and issues for this Bills defense?
Yes, and I think there was no better time to talk about it than post-Falcons, if we're being candid. One of the things that frustrated me a lot about the first half for the Buffalo Bills against the Atlanta Falcons was Drake London's play. And the reason it frustrated me is because you go into this game with the Atlanta Falcons knowing that they're shorthanded at receiver. And when you look at the plan from a defensive standpoint, you wonder whether or not anyone actually watched the Falcons and Drake London play, because Drake London is first off, an incredibly gifted player, right? Has maybe the strongest hands in the league, just an absolute monster. And the reason why he gets 12 to 15 target, like the reason why he's a target monster, like why is he a target monster? Is he a target monster because they're targeting him down the field on skinny posts all the time? No, that's not his game. Drake London will go in motion or will line up in the slot, and against zone coverage, he is always read number one, right? He will correctly identify the appropriate gap coming out of the slot. He will turn around. Michael Penix will hit him with an absolute laser, because Michael Penix, when, can just absolutely rip the ball, he'll turn around, break a tackle, gain 9 yards, and they'll do it all over again. That's what Drake London does. And so the reason why it's so frustrating, and you look at yourself and you go, why is he always open? It's because you're spot dropping against Drake London in the slot. Like, that's what happens. And they're going to continue to chew you up 15 targets a game doing that exact thing because you didn't make Drake London make a decision coming off the line that's any more difficult than, well, okay, I got my guy to the left and I got a guy to my right. I'm going to go ahead and turn around in between these two guys. And you didn't make Michael Penix do anything other than catch the ball, turn, rock, throw. Penix has a little bit of Tua in him when the sense he gets out of his first and second read and he's like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, right? Gets a little bit of panicky. The difference is he's a markedly better athlete, right, than Tua, and has a markedly better arm than Tua does. So he can get away with these things, just catch, rock, throw. And you didn't give him any reason not to catch, rock, throw. So let's just rewind real quick. And that's the reason why it's frustrating. And I rambled on a little bit too much about that. But from a spot drop standpoint, you hear this called country zone, right? A lot of terminology is different, but country zone, right? Country zone versus match zone is about who are you reading in the initial second and a half of the play. So are you reading the line for pass run and then dropping to a field location and reading the quarterback to allow you to rally to the throw? Or are you reading the line for pass run and then reading a specific receiver for a conditional that will tell you what you're supposed to do in the next phase of the play? That's the difference between the two on. It's post pass run determination. Am I reading the quarterback for rallying to the ball? Or am I reading a conditional on a receiver to match up? So great example. Think about like an RPO, right? But it's on defense. So RPOs are binaries, right? If this, then this. If not this, then this. That's the reason why Shane Steichen has built a significant chunk of his offense around them, because it's the reason why Daniel Jones seems to be playing with such much confidence. It's because he is. It's, hey, Daniel, if this, then do this. If not this, then do this. Okay, I mean, I can do that, right? And that's the reason why it gives quarterbacks confidence in the game. Think about that, but in the inverse. So let's take flat curl. I know this is weird to do without a whiteboard, but okay, you got flat curl, right? So you got flat curl, two-man concept, number one receiver on the outside, number two receiver, second to the outside. Number one receiver is the most outside to the sideline, and the number two receiver is the next closest to the outside. So the number two receiver runs a flat route, and the number one runs a curl. In a spot drop scenario against this, then what you have happen is you have a defender who's over the top of the number two receiver covering the flat. So that'll naturally draw their way out that direction, right? And then you're trying to get that hook in behind him. So you're trying to get that play in behind that player who vacated that zone. That's the point. But the point is to draw that guy away. But if you're in a zone match, then the inside defender will allow the number one receiver to go to the flat. He's going to allow that go so that he can be capped by the outside corner. And that, okay, I'm going to make them go, okay, well, they came into my zone, but because of the conditional rules associated with this coverage, I'm going to let them go and someone else is going to pick them up and I'm going to pick up the guy coming to my zone. So it's a matter of stagnant. That's what drop zone becomes. The reason why zone match was created to begin with is because you would run zone and people would run zone beaters. Like, that's it. You would run zone and they would go, well, you're going to run zone. I'm going to run a zone beater. And everyone would just get carved up over and over again. And so defenses created the concept of zone match so that they could put the conditional emphasis back on the defensive control. So instead of the offense controlling all the what if scenarios, now the defense controls the what if scenarios. And what you have happen is you have a group of defenders who are spot dropping to zones and they're just covering grass. There's just grass out there. So congratulations, your grass is not catching any balls, right? Like you've done the thing. And it's the fact that it showed up a lot against specifically the Falcons is what caused my eyebrows to raise up. It caused me to feel things I don't like feeling when I watch the All-22. And that is ultimately my concern. I hope I didn't go crazy on that, but that was my thought.
No, that's tremendous analysis, and I'm glad that you went into the detail that you did. And this is where Vic Fangio really had his glow up, as a defensive mind in the NFL, because he was like the zone match guy, and he frustrated Sean McVay, right? And Sean McVay was the, we're gonna, no matter what you do, you're gonna be wrong. And Vic Fangio said, okay, well, we're gonna figure something else out. So my question now to you is, why are the Bills doing this? Like this is very obvious to me. I think anyone who's kind of like aware of coverage and the issues, kind of obvious. Why are the Bills doing this?
I don't think they trust Trey White to be able to hold up. That's my opinion. I don't think they trust Trey White to be able to hold up, because think about it this way. What is the difference in, sorry, I had to cough there for a second. What is the difference in personnel from last year to this year? It's primarily the fact that Trey White's playing meaningfully, because you have Cole Bishop, but if you're making, I will say this, you could be making coverage determinations based on Bishop. You shouldn't, though, because he's your best athlete in the secondary. So if you are doing spot drop more because of Cole Bishop, I think you're making the wrong call. I'd literally rather have him make a mistake than what you're doing. So I'm going to assume positive intent, right, from a Bobby Babbitt standpoint. And I'm going to assume it's because of Trey White, and it's because he just doesn't have the horses to hold up in scenarios where he will be matched with a player running through his zone and has to attach. I think that's my concern. He is, listen, spot drop is more correlated with turnovers. It is. It always has been. Why? Because you have more players facing the quarterback. And I think that when you have a defense who wants to try and take the ball away, and you have a defense who has historically taken the ball away at the rate that the Buffalo Bills do, I understand why you'd want to do that. I think it's a Trey White decision. If it is a Cole Bishop decision, I think it's the wrong one.
Well, the Bills have tried not to play Trey White. Of course, they signed Trey White, and then they drafted Maxwell Harrison in the first round, and he got hurt. And then they wanted to platoon in Dorian Strong, and then he got hurt. And they put in Jamarcus Ingram in that game in place of Trey White. And somehow that was worse than Trey White you saw the Bijan run. The way that he defended the run there and didn't get Bijan to slow his feet is not quite as big as Terrell Bernard completely being out of his gap and taking on the block with the wrong technique. That was your number one issue. But Jamarcus not being able to slow the feet there was pretty telling. And then the play that Drake London almost scored on before the half, I don't understand what Jamarcus was doing. Point being is I don't think he's a better option. So they're trying. They're very much trying. But right now, this is who they have, and it's unfortunate.
I can understand if it's just we have a new safety, Cole Bishop, but I'll level with you, man. He's the best athlete you have in the secondary. Yeah. If it really is a scenario where you're doing it to simplify things for Cole Bishop, I think it's time to take the training wheels off and just let him, if he's got to fail, he's got to fail, but help him play fast.
Yeah. All right. That was a great discussion on zone drop and safeties. We got one more thing to get to. We're going to talk about defensive team building here on the other side of it. So folks, be sure to stick with us. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. What do you get when you have a bald eagle standing on top of a silverback gorilla riding a T-Rex? Confidence, pure confidence. And if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, and the effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is very simple. You connect yourself with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your order. That's RUGIET.com, Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. I'm joined today by Bruce Nolan of the Bruce Exclusive Podcast. We're having our bye-week discussion, talking a lot of defense here. And the last thing we're going to get into is defensive team building. And This is, I mean, I asked you what you want to talk about. You put this down. So I'm curious, what's burning up your mind on this?
What's burning up my mind is that I think effectiveness is a mathematical formula. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of months because one of the big conversations in the lead up to this offseason was whether or not we would see any philosophical shift from the Buffalo Bills on the defensive side of the ball. And the answer was no. We doubled down on the things, tripled down on the things that you've historically done. You drafted TJ Sanders in the second, who I like, by the way, as a prospect. You drafted Landon Jackson the third, who I liked a little less as a prospect, but both of them fit the archetypes. Even the guy you drafted in the fourth round, who's been playing well overall for Deion Walker and has had some of the highlights of this defensive line so far this season, fits an archetype of someone you've had before in Jordan Phillips. And so they doubled and tripled down on the things they normally do. But that philosophy had been in question for a couple of years already as to whether or not the philosophy needed updated. Maybe the philosophy was getting stale, regardless of whether you changed from Leslie Frazier to Sean McDermott to Bobby Babich. Overall, the philosophy remained similar because the philosophy flows from Sean McDermott as a head coach. But what you're seeing is that a fading philosophy multiplied by lesser execution gives you lesser results. And so as I think about your success on defense being mathematical, right? It is a matter of the execution by the philosophy, right? You take your philosophy, you multiply it by your execution, you end up with your success. And so what you're seeing is you're seeing what I, in my opinion, would be a philosophy that was in need of slight upgrade, refresh, modification, perhaps, multiplied by lesser execution this year. We already talked about the overall variance associated with playing a lot of young players and practice squad players behind higher variance linebackers. But really, the scenario that occurs to me is that you got the worst of both worlds. You got a philosophy that was probably in need of a refresh, not refreshed. And now you're not even executing that philosophy at the level that you've historically done. Right? Because, hey, you know what? Maybe it was a philosophy that needed to be refreshed or updated a little bit or modified or tweaked, but at least we had high level execution of it. We mentioned about run defense earlier, right? At least we had a reason that we could tell you as to why they were gaining 4.5 yards a carry. That wasn't just things are going bad. It was, no, this is all part of the plan. Now we can have a separate conversation about whether the plan was good, but at least we knew what it was. And at least we knew that this was the philosophy associated with the way you want to play defense. This season, I think what you've seen so far this year is you have seen a degradation of both parts of the multiplication problem that make up results. You saw a lesser, more tired defensive philosophy multiplied by lesser execution. And that's ultimately why you end up where you're at. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to as I'm thinking about the way to kind of justify what I'm seeing. I think you do see some positives. I think Joey Bosa as a pass rusher has been nice. Joey Bosa against the run has been less nice. But those things are working out as intended. But it's the overall philosophy and the execution of that philosophy that's just creating lesser results right now.
So I tend to agree with everything you said, and I think that I think it's disappointing, right? And it's concerning, everything that you just laid out there, and it doesn't give me a lot of hope for the path forward. But how do you foil? Maxwell Harrison is different. They are running more base defense, and maybe you did say that that's more rooted in the defensive tackle situation than a choice, right? That they actually want to get away from nickel. You also have, Michael Hoyt's a very unique player that we haven't seen yet. Is it coming? Ryan Nielsen's part of this. I was expecting to see more stunts, more pressure, more man coverage. Are they wanting to go somewhere, but the personnel piece of it hasn't been available to do what they want to do? Or am I just grasping for some hopium?
I don't think it's entirely hope casting. And the reason I don't think it's entirely hope casting is because the players you mentioned are meaningful Like they didn't pay Michael Hoyt 1 year, $2 million. They paid him with the idea that he was going to be a meaningful piece of this puzzle. And then he got suspended, and you didn't spend a 7th round pick. You're not hope casting for a 7th round pick and a vet minimum. That's not what you're doing. You're hope casting for a 1st round pick who, mind you, was arguably one of the better off zone players at corner, right? In the draft. So let's not gloss over that. Yep. And Michael Hoyt, who based on versatility can change what we just talked about from a philosophy standpoint. So I don't think it's hope casting. I think that it's hoping. Sure, we're hoping, but I don't think it's insane to say they want to do some things they can't do right now because they're shorthanded because of the investments in those people that are coming back. And so I hope that at the end of the year, we're not having Maxwell Hairston rookie year is basically just a shot like the way Cole Bishop's was a shot, because then at that point, we're going to be having the same conversation about Maxwell Hairston being a high variance younger player who's basically a rookie at the bye week next year when you and I do the show. So for me, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's hope casting to say that this could turn around when the people that you made investments in start becoming players you can count on.
This Bills defense under Bobby Babich, I think there's been a true characteristic of it. And I feel bad for Bobby Babich to some extent, because I think last year he was undermanned with talent and they had tons of injuries. Jones and Rousseau were the only 2 starters to not miss at least 1 game due to injury. And then you get to this year and you're right back into it. Injuries all over the place. Players you're supposed to have are not there. But one thing that's been characteristic of Bobby's defenses throughout his tenure is they start poor, but boy, he does make some nice adjustments. Whether there's actually something different or not, but the defense ultimately at some point starts to play better. And I think that was evident in the last 2 games against the Patriots and Falcons, where legitimately they kind of did their part. Now look, I know against Atlanta, they gave up 3 touchdowns in the first 4 drives, but then after that, they gave up 3 points and really tightened the screws. What do you think it is in terms of why they start so poorly and then eventually play, at least, give them a chance to win?
First off, I think Babich is really smart. I do. I think he's a smart guy. Like anyone who's listened to Babich explain things from a schematic standpoint, you've watched any coaching seminars or you watched him in press conferences where he has an opportunity to kind of flex that brain a little bit. You think this is a smart guy, but this is a guy who understands that it's not working and is naturally going to be curious as to why it's not working. And so I think that lends itself ultimately to people who are capable of making changes. Now, one of the bad things about being super smart is people have a tendency to overthink things when they're super smart.
Can't relate. I don't know anything about this. Yeah.
Sometimes they come into a scenario with a convoluted idea of conditionals, right? Well, if they do this, I'm going to do this. And if they do that, I'm going to do this. And and it ends up being a very hypothetical that causes chaos. But then once you see what they're actually doing, you go, oh, okay, I'm going to do this thing. So you over-prepared, you came in, you didn't necessarily present your best foot because there was all these different conditionals. Well, you could go this way and this way, this way. I don't know if you and I talked before the Dynasty Fantasy Football Draft, right? I have an entire page of if he does this, then I'm going to do this. And if he does that, then I'm going to do this. And eventually it comes down to it. Option A was what I ended up using in my Dynasty draft. Option A, plan A is what I used for the first round of the draft. So I didn't have to go to plan G. Now I did go to plan G, but ultimately all that did was create a bunch of variants for me. It created things like, well, maybe plans B is better. It's a lot harder to prioritize things when you consider too many things. And so I think one of the hallmarks of really smart coaches is that they can adjust, but sometimes they don't start off great. And I think that some of that shows up when I ask myself, why did you see what you saw against Drake London and the Atlanta Falcons in the first part of the game? Part of you wonders, if this guy throws rock all the time, maybe this is going to be the game he doesn't throw rock. So you know what I'm going to do? He throws rock all the time. He's expecting me. No. That's just what he wants me to do. He wants me to throw scissors because he throws rock all the time. But you know what? He's going to change. That's what he's going to do. He's going to throw paper. So what I'm going to do, and so you start to kind of work your way through that. And I've seen that. I've done that as a coach. I've done that. And that is something that I just wonder about. I have no specific proof that it's something with Bobby Baptist. It's just something I see from really smart coaches.
I play rock, paper, scissors with my daughter all the time. She's 5.5 years old. And we get into those, fisticuffs moments where we're both going to we throw a rock. I think it could go 15 times in a row. We're just waiting for someone to budge. And you know who budges every time? Me. I budge every time. So one day I'll beat my 6-year-old. Maybe when she's 6, I'll beat her in rock, paper, scissors. So Bruce, this has been a blast, man. I really appreciate it. I love talking football with you. I learn things. You present information in ways that enhances my knowledge or teaches me something new or allows me to see something differently. So thanks for what you do to make me better and what you do with your podcast to serve Bills Mafia. And of course, for coming on this episode today.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. It's always a good time. We don't do it enough.
I know,
but it's always a good time when we do. And every time I get done, I'm like, man, jazzed up. I'm going to go watch some Thursday night football. And I'm like, why do I not do that more often? Why do we not do something more often? No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It will never stop being an honor that somebody who I have such a level of respect for in this space wants me to come on and give my opinions.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much. Don't tempt me. I'll bug you more often. So, all right, folks, thanks for being here. Certainly appreciate that. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.